So ito nga pala ang plano ni Mr. Trump, ang bagong halal na presidente sa Amerika. Ano ba ang epekto nito sa mga Pilipino na andoon? So let's watch this one.
Thank you all very much.
Mahigilawang buwan pa bago formal na bumalik sa White House si President-elect Donald Trump sa Enero. Pero usap-usapan na ang magiging mukha ng kanyang gabinete. Una agad sa listahan ng appointee ni Trump ang kanyang campaign manager at kilalang political strategist na si Susan Wiles. Siya ang inappoint ni Trump na maging susunod at kauna-unahang babaeng chief of staff ng White House.
Susie likes to stay sort of in the back, let me tell you. The ice baby, we call her the ice baby.
Bukod sa gabinete, isa sa mga pangako ni Trump noong eleksyon ang mas mahigpit na immigration policy. Kaya isa sa pinangangambahan ng mga eksperto ang posibleng malawakang deportation ng illegal migrants kapag naupo na ulit si Trump. Ang Philippine Embassy sa Washington, binalaan ang mga undocumented na Pinoy roon na umuwi na lang muna kaysa mapadeport.
Immediately leave voluntarily because once you're deported, you can never come back to the United States. At least if you leave, there's always an opportunity or a chance that you'll be able to file at the right and just follow the rules and regulations of the country.
Sa datos ng Philippine Embassy sa US, tinatayang aabot sa 300,000 ang mga undocumented na Pinoy sa Amerika. Ayon sa pinakamalaking PhilAm organization sa Amerika na Global Transparency and Transformation Advocates Network, tatamaan din ang ekonomiya ng Amerika kung matutuloy ang plano ni Trump. Lalo't karamihan sa mga illegal migrants, pinapakinabangan din ng US dahil sa mababang pasahod.
Pag umalis ang mga yan, what will happen? Then people will then either do it themselves or they will have to look for people with document to do it, but they will charge more.
Nagbabalita mula sa Frontline, Camille Samonte, News 5.
In the U.S., let's find out from Filipino-American immigration lawyer attorney Jath Shao. Attorney, good afternoon from the Philippines. Thank you for joining the program.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing fine. I hope you're doing the same as well. Let's start with Trump's deportation plan. We do know that this has been his rallying cry since the beginning of his run for the presidency. How do you think this plan specifically will impact the undocumented Filipinos, given that we have many longtime residents working in essential sectors like healthcare?
So I honestly think it's a little bit overblown, right? So if you look at history in the past 24 years, there's been about 9.6 million cases in deportation, and only 25,000 are Filipino. So Filipinos are 1% of the U.S. population, but we're only 0.2% of the deportation case. There's only actually about 1,200 Filipinos in removal proceedings right now, all throughout the U.S. It's a very tiny problem that's magnified a little bit too much in political rhetoric.
All right, because I think I thought from Ambassador Babe's numbers that he mentioned, there are maybe around 200 to 300,000 illegal immigrants Filipino immigrants in the U.S. that are illegally not undocumented. But we do have many Filipinos in healthcare. There are also those in caregiving. How do you think a big blow? How much a big blow will deportation deal in communities that rely on their contributions?
In immigration law, right, there's a concept of forgiveness. So typically, your defense, your forgiveness would be hardship to a spouse or a parent who's a U.S. citizen or a green card holder. Typically, if you have an employment-based case, the hospital or nursing home, they can't do anything for you unless you have a clean record. So I really think this is a problem that's very political, but it doesn't actually happen in real life. I would say the people in removal, probably 1/3 of them get removed historically. 1 in 4 will get their cases terminated by the government for bad paperwork or the government deciding to release the case. Probably, 1/10 of them will go home, like the ambassador was saying. It's a very small problem. I think, in real life, as long as you do everything right, it's a very small problem. And it's not Filipino Americans. We are not the ones who are actually in proceedings. We're typically law-abiding, and we follow rules. So we're not really part of this problem. And
Because I do know that I think Filipinos are the third most in when it comes to population of minorities in the U.S. So if you're saying that we don't really have that much of a problem, I was thinking if there would be industries or sectors in the U.S. that might be affected if in case deportation of illegal immigrants happen, more particularly if we're talking about Filipino Americans.
I would say, again, I guess to your point, like the people who actually working in the hospitals, in the nursing homes, those people are all documented. That there's not it's only a very tiny percent of Filipinos that are undocumented. And if we put it in perspective, right, Trump wants to do mass deportation. The most they've ever deported in 1 year is 400,000 people. If you say that Filipinos are 0.2% of that, that means 2,000 Filipinos get deported per year. 300,000 undocumented. It's going to take at least 150 years for that to happen. And don't even think about each case could take 5 to 10 years. So realistically, it's not going to happen in anyone's lifetime. It's just a scare tactic, for the election. It's not a real problem, I believe.
But attorney, we have seen Donald Trump campaigning for this since he lost the election to Joe Biden. He's been saying that he will be focusing on illegal immigrants to be deported. I was wondering if ever in his his run for the presidency this time, has he been very vocal on the assessment of his team on the impact of deportation, particularly on staffing shortages or healthcare crises like the previous COVID pandemic?
I guess I would say, politicians promise everything, but the American Immigration Council did a study. If they say they remove 1 million illegals a year, that would cost the economy $315 billion in direct costs, and probably about $1 trillion in actual costs when you remove, everybody. So this would be, farm workers, your Uber drivers, people that don't have status, which again, it's not really Filipino Americans, but assuming for the sake of argument that we removed all those people, it would cause a negative impact of hundreds of billions of dollars to the economy. And honestly, I don't think it's going to happen because, again, I have cases from 1997, from 2005. Like, it takes 5, 10, 20 years to go through the system, which Filipinos should be familiar with in terms of how long it takes. It's just something that politicians use to sell, to get themselves in the office. But in reality, it's a very tiny portion of. And
So ang masasabi ko lang talaga is you have to follow kung ano yung mga rules ng immigration. Kung ano ang mga rules sa Amerika, so hindi mag-overstay para hindi naman magka-problema. And then, kung kailangan talaga na umalis, so siguro umalis na lang. Kasi nga, kung na-deport ka, yun nga ang sabi, hindi ka na makakabalik. So, it's very simple, no? So, kailangan talaga is, we should have to follow kung ano yung mga rules nila sa kanilang bansa para maiiwasan yung mga aberya at mga problema.